Hello, hello. I hope you'll grab your coffee and join me in this conversation that just came about this morning from a comment on my recent video that I posted um, 2 days ago. So I posted a video. I'm actually going to put it in the chat, the video link. And it is titled the let me see. I can't remember the title. The advice that destroyed 3 marriages. Stop following this advice. It will destroy your life. So in the video, I gave 7 pieces of advice that I was given when I was little, such as one of them isn't this, but this is an example. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, right? How many of you were taught that? And I would love if you're here, put in the chat where you're coming in from. I'm in Phoenix, and I have nice warm coffee here in a let it snow mug, but it's supposed to be 80 degrees here today. So, but you got to get in the spirit any way that you can, right? I would love to know where you are, and if you have something in your cup, what's in your cup? Mine is mushroom coffee with butter and maple syrup. It is my favorite. I love it. I almost crave it. I just love something warm to drink in the morning. So we are talking today about my video that I did and a comment that I got this morning on something that really hit the commenter hard. And she said, one of the awful pieces of advice that I was given when I was young, and our parents didn't do this on purpose, right? It was just they were doing the best they could, and they were teaching us things that, they thought that were good for us to know. Good morning, Washington State. I just finished my gingerbread chai tea. Yum. That sounds good, Trish. So I was taught all these things. And one of the pieces of advice that I had in the video, again, I posted the link to that video so that you can go watch it after the live is over. But one of the pieces of advice that I was given when I was young was don't rock the boat, right? Don't rock the boat. In other words, be a good girl, be nice, don't speak up, um, don't don't disappoint other people, don't hurt other people's feelings, right? Keep the peace. And this commenter said on the video, this just came up. She just commented this morning, and I thought it was such a great comment because it allows us to see how impactful this simple "don't rock the boat" phrase that we were given, how impactful it might be in our life in a negative way. So the commenter said, don't rock the boat is the greatest bit of gaslighting abusers weaponize against their victims. And I experienced this. The abuse, she went on to say, the abuser is the one rocking the boat. The victim is the one constantly steadying it. Have you ever felt that way? Like where someone was pushing you and maybe getting you on the defensive. And so you feel backed in the corner, and all you try to do then is to try and calm the waters, right? Steady the boat. She goes on to say, they are the ones, the abuser is the one making the waves. And if we don't react to steady the boat, they blame us for rocking it, right? Toxic people have a way of twisting things around to get us to feel like we are the ones causing the problem. And that's what gaslighting is making us think that there's a different reality, that things are actually different than what they are. So that will back down. And she goes on to say more, what they mean to say is the abuser, what they mean to say is, don't you dare acknowledge that I'm the one making the waves. You keep pretending that it's your fault, right? And so if you have been in a toxic relationship, and this doesn't have to be an intimate relationship, it can be with other people, friends, family members. It doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. So I wanted to talk about this today because it's so important to realize where these patterns come from and what we can do to shift them. Because again, in my third marriage, and I would love for you to go watch that video and comment. Again, I put the video link in the chat so you can see it there in the chat. I wonder if I can pin that. Yes, there, now it's pinned to the top. Um, so I talk about 6 other pieces of advice that I was given when I was young. And again, our parents, for the most part, 99% of them didn't do it maliciously. There were some of us have toxic parents, so we were pushed. I did not. I did not have toxic parents, but they were they taught me things subliminally a lot of times, things that I grew up believing, and it ended up destroying, getting me into 3 marriages that didn't work because of my people pleasing and my inability to see um, toxic behavior or behavior that wasn't what I wanted in a relationship, but I was also committing, if you will, bad behavior because I was people pleasing, right? And so we have the kind of abusive behavior on one side of the spectrum and the tolerant submissive behavior on the other. And they both contribute to unhealthy relationships and uh, unhealthy an unhealthy mental state. So I'm not necessarily blaming the other person because I came into these marriages with unhealthy behavior, unhealthy thoughts, and unhealthy diminishing habits, if you will. So I don't blame our parents for doing this because most of the time it wasn't done maliciously on purpose, but we were taught things like, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And like the commenter said, don't rock the boat. So what these pieces of advice teach us, what they train us to do is to be silent instead of telling our truth, right? They teach us that silence is more important than truth, that silence will help us keep the peace, and that keeping the peace, is more important than our truth. Or definitely, we were taught, right, to avoid conflict, most of us. We were taught then, this trains us to study the chaos that we didn't create. So if we get into a relationship like I did, where he was emotionally abusive, right? I tried to study that. I tried to calm it. I tried to not push his buttons, which led me to not speak my truth with him. And that all came from the pattern that I was taught when I was young. So we end up mistaking peacekeeping for actual peace. Me trying and doing everything I could to keep the peace in that relationship and in all of my marriages actually stole my peace, because I can't be peacekeeping when I can't have peace when I am constantly trying to keep the peace with other people, right? That makes me ignore my truth. It makes me diminish my needs. And we can't feel at peace in ourselves when we are constantly placating and compromising to meet other people's what they're saying are their needs, right? And trying to keep the peace with them. I heard a saying one time that I believe that we are all here to serve other people, right? To be the best me that I can be in order to have the best life that I can have, but also to be able to have a full cup and serve from that full cup. And I heard this saying that we cannot be serving when we are trying to be pleasing. And I was like, "Whoa." That hit me deep, because I had spent my life trying to be pleasing, people pleasing, right? Trying to keep other people happy. So, don't rock the boat. That really awful piece of advice got me in and out of 3 marriages and a lot of relationships, and I have now, in the last few years, since I have started speaking up for myself, started speaking my truth, not in a mean or hurtful way, right? But I have, um, I would say, severed ties with 2 really close friends that I had. And most of the reason for that is because they didn't like the new me. And that tells me that they were, um, taking advantage of the old me. I actually had one of them tell me, um, she wanted the old Heidi back, and I said, "The old Heidi's not coming back." So, that is a fallout that could happen from breaking free from this advice, these lies that we were told when we were young, because some people are taking advantage of us being in this state of people pleasing. And if you're just joining, we're talking about a comment that I got on the video that I posted 2 days ago about the bad 7 pieces of bad advice, basically lies that I was told when I was young and then grew up believing, and that basically ruined 3 marriages because of my people pleasing that I got into um, because of these lies that was taught to believe. So how does this get wired into the brain? Which it definitely does. So, as a child, we are basically required to seek safety, right? Because as a baby and as a young child, 5, 6, 7, 10, right? We don't have the capability to care for ourselves. So, we have to rely on our caretakers to keep us safe, keep us fed, keep us warm, have a place to sleep at night. And this this seeking safety it's just ingrained into our subconscious mind, right? Our subconscious's mind, our subconscious mind's main job is to keep us alive, which means keeping us safe. And so safety becomes more important when we're young over authenticity. And so when we are told these things, like if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, then we, because we have no analytical ability when we're young, we take that to mean I shouldn't speak up, right? If I can't say anything nice, which who makes the rules for what's nice, but we're told kind of subliminally that speaking my truth, saying no, is not nice, right? And so as a child, I learned to be basically inauthentic in order to stay safe. So that's at a very primal level, right? I learned to seek approval, and approval came through following those rules, following that advice that I was given. And approval, again, then equaled survival. It equaled that safety. If I could stay in everyone's good graces, then I would stay safe. And then the repetition of that, the things that we were told, the things that we experienced, all these pieces of advice, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I mean, that just rolls off my tongue. And that's because I was told it so many times. Be a good girl, right? And then our little brains just take all of this in as the truth, that if I rock the boat, don't rock the boat, be nice, be a good girl, don't make any waves, right? If I rock the boat, then I'm no longer considered good. And I talk about this in the video that my little black and white brain, right? My black or white. It was either or. It was good or bad. So if I wasn't being good, that meant I was being bad. And so I did everything I could to not be perceived as bad, not to be judged as bad, because in our little brains, that would mean that I possibly would not be safe, right? That I needed my caretakers, my teachers, those adult, or parental figures in our life we needed to feel safe with them. And that meant for a lot of us who were taught these things that we didn't speak up and that we didn't rock the boat and that we just diminished ourselves, right? We diminished our authentic, who we wanted to be or who we thought yeah, just who we were growing into, right? We're probably about 1.5. If you have children, what age did they start saying no? About 1.5, right? 1.5, 2, right? They weren't learned the word no. And for many of us, then we were taught that was wrong to say no. That is the first formation of a boundary. Like, this is what's okay with me, and this is what's not okay with me. And if we were forced out of that, if we were forced out of being able to say no when we were young, then we learned that boundaries weren't about me, that it wasn't okay to have boundaries, right? And rocking the boat means speaking up for myself. I might rock the boat if I speak my truth, right? But that's not about me. That's about the other person reacting to me speaking my truth. And that is not a reason to not speak my truth. But again, it became this vicious cycle. So we were taught to not say no. We were taught to not rock the boat. We were taught to be nice, to be good, to be, to follow the rules. And these were the rules. So that repetition of being told this and and experiencing maybe being dismissed or being punished if we went against what we were told. Those things then got patterned into the brain, into what are called neural pathways. And that is what the subconscious follows now. That's what the brain follows as an adult. It's just following the programming that we were given. So the subconscious mind, again, it runs programs. It doesn't run logic. It is just like software. It's running a program. It doesn't logically think. So, as an adult, if I was taught as a child to not rock the boat, and then I get into a toxic marriage like I did, the pattern that automatically runs when there is conflict or when something is happening that is chaotic, my subconscious mind, my brain automatically says, "Oh, don't rock the boat," right? It just runs that program. It doesn't logically think, is this person creating this chaos on purpose, right? Is this person gaslighting me? It has no ability to do that. It has no ability to be logical. So we are just adults running around running these programs that are in our subconscious mind that were given, that were programmed in, again, not maliciously, not on purpose, but that were programmed in. It's just the way we were programmed, patterned when we were young. It's just habitual. That's a great way to explain it. These don't rock the boat and all of those patterns that we catch ourselves in or maybe don't catch ourselves in as adults are just habits that were formed, thought habits when we were young. So I wasn't choosing this. I wasn't choosing as an adult to not rock the boat in my 3 marriages. It was programmed into me to not rock the boat. My 3rd marriage, when he left in a storm, in a rage on New Year's Day, 2018, that was my brick to the head that I needed to start breaking this pattern. I suddenly saw in that moment that I was the common denominator in all of my relationships. And I recognized it was like almost instantaneously that his stuff was his stuff to deal with, right? He had his own demons to deal with. But I was the common denominator in all of my relationships. And I went to work then on what was it in me that was causing this. And I realized it was the programming, it was what I was patterned to believe when I was young. And our subconscious mind has no choice but just to run those patterns until we give it a new pattern. It's like creating a new habit. Many months ago, kind of a offshoot of this, many months ago, I decided to start getting sunlight in my eyes in the morning before blue light, which meant that I couldn't get on my computer or on my phone first thing in the morning because I wanted to break that habit. I didn't want to be laying in bed on my phone at 6 a.m., right? Because then it gets your body and mind all triggered for that sensation. And it's not a good way to uh, support your, what are they called? Your circadian rhythms for sleep. And so it can get you all screwed up in your sleep cycles. So I started going outside for 5 to 10 minutes in the morning before I ever allowed myself to look at my phone. That old pattern of looking at my phone first thing in the morning before I got out of bed was a habit, right? I replaced it once I realized what was happening and how it was not a healthy habit that I wanted to have. I consciously had to start doing something differently, had to choose something differently in order to replace the habit that I had with a new one that I wanted. All of our thoughts are that we repeat over and over, like, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, right? That's just a thought habit. It's just a thought that was patterned in when we were young. So, in order to replace it, I have to start consciously choosing to replace it with something different. And we can do that with anything in our life that isn't serving us. So when he left in a rage on New Year's Day, I decided to start choosing something different and to figure out what were these patterns that I was running that were not serving me in my life. And I went to Codependence Anonymous for 3 years. Weekly, every week, I would go to meetings. If you haven't heard of it, it's a 12-step program similar to AA or NA or Al Anon, any of those. It's formatted um, on the same theme, and it was life-changing for me because I I can remember I got a sponsor just like you would in AA, in Codependence Anonymous. I got a sponsor, and, like, 3 months into me going to weekly meetings, I got a sponsor, started working with her, and I remember the first time that I met with her, I said to her, "This isn't gonna take long because I'm not that bad." It's so cringy now to hear myself say that I was like, "I'm not as bad as them," or "I'm not that bad. This isn't gonna take long to correct these errors," you know? And now I realize, like, this is going to be a lifetime of work, right? I'm far ahead of where I was 7 years ago, but it's a lifetime of work of bettering yourself and realizing the patterns that you were given when you were young. They they you're not doing these things on purpose. It's just the programs that you were given. But we now as adults have to take responsibility and change the programming if we no longer want to run that program. So we end up as adults, like, we can end up blaming ourselves, right? And get taken advantage of by these programs that we were given, like "Don't rock the boat." In this marriage that only lasted 10 months, he very quickly started it was like someone had flipped a switch when we got married, when we said "I do." It was like someone had flipped a switch, and he became very controlling of my energy and my time. The next video that's coming out is going to be my story about this and what happened. So, if you're not subscribed, make sure you're subscribed so that you get notified when that video comes out. But, uh And so I caught myself, like, thinking, "What did I do wrong? What happened that made him suddenly become so controlling and so demanding of my time and energy, and where did this come from?" So I started thinking, if I was only nicer, if I only started giving him more of my time, if I only started, right? Not speaking up, not saying what I felt, not asking for what I needed. And I just started to try to be nicer. So we end up blaming ourselves when we're taught these things like, don't rock the boat. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, right? then we grow into adults and we blame ourselves because we think that we must have done something wrong to cause the other person to react or do or say the thing that they're doing or saying. If I only explained better, if I stayed calmer, right? If I just tried to be nicer, quieter, more people pleasing, if I just tried to make them happier. So self doubt became what happened instead of me recognizing that there was this pattern there, right? But until I really started examining what was I seeing repeating, right? And I had 3 marriages. So I started looking back on what did I who did I show up as that was similar in all 3 of these marriages? And all 3 of them, I didn't speak my mind. I didn't speak my truth. I thought that I had done something wrong. I thought if I was only nicer, I thought I must not be nice enough. All of these things. It was the pattern that I was taught when I was young that I was living out in these relationships. Once I started examining that and seeing that I could change that pattern, those patterns weren't serving me, and I started shifting them. Yes, people fell out of my life, but those people weren't there because they loved me. They loved what I did for them, right? They loved what I gave to them. They loved my overgiving, my willingness to completely abandon myself to meet their needs, their wants, their desires, right? To put them on a pedestal, to make them feel good about themselves. That's my responsibility to feel good about myself. That's your responsibility to feel good about yourself, to do what you need to do for yourself, to accept yourself, to respect yourself, to do the things that bring you joy and happiness and fulfillment. And yes, someone else can add to that, but my cup needs to already be full going into any kind of relationship. It doesn't matter what, intimate or not, my cup already needs to be full. Then you get from the overflow of my cup, not from the emptiness of my cup, right? Because serving from an empty cup is not serving, because how can you give when you don't have anything to give? Let that land. How can you give when you don't have anything to give? When you've abandoned and sacrificed yourself so much, maybe you have a drop or two left, but you're then willing to give that and then it's gone, right? So, this was a great your this was a great comment that she left on the video. And again, I put the link to that video. It's a 16-minute video. It has 7 lies or pieces of advice I was given when I was young, not purposefully, just through, you know, daily living. If you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. I encourage you to go watch that video and then comment, what piece of advice were you given that you have been living by that's not serving you in your life? Maybe I'm sure there's lots of advice, right, that we were given. Um, like a silly one is if he picks on you or he hurts you, he likes you, right? Like we were told that when we were young. And that again, it's a silly one, but I grew up and then married someone who was toxic because I overlooked behaviors that I shouldn't have overlooked. But I did because of all of this awful advice that was subliminally given to me when I was young that then became the pattern that I ran in my life. So again, this live today came from a comment that someone left on that video, and again, I encourage you to go watch that. But she said, "Don't rock the boat is the greatest bit of gaslighting abusers weaponize against their victims." So I encourage you, I invite you to look at what rules or advice do you feel like you're following in your life? Even something as simple as, resting is lazy. We need rest. And especially as we get into midlife, right? We need to support our body. We can't think our body is going to support us when we're not giving it's not a machine, right? It needs to be supported, and rest and good nutrition, especially this time of year. It's really easy to get into party mode, to get into Christmas mode, to get into go, go, go mode, gift buying, and all the things, lots of sugar, um, less sleep, right? We need to purposefully, consciously choose ourselves first and give to ourselves first in order to be able to give from a full cup to others. And simple things like sleep and, you know, cutting out sugar, eating healthy, eating protein, getting out in the sunlight first thing in the morning, like I talked about, instead of getting that blue light in your eyes first thing, right? Little simple things you can do to care for yourself. But I encourage you, I invite you to look at what advice are you following that was just that just became habitual to think is true. Maybe make a list of 10 things. Go listen to that video. And what else did you think of? I would love for you to comment in that video and tell me, what advice didn't I say in the video that you realized that you're following that's not serving you in your life? I would love to know. I am going live here every weekend, trying on Sunday mornings to see how that works, to see if it's a good time for people. It seems like maybe Saturday afternoons are a better time. So we'll just play with it for a while and see what works for the most people. I appreciate you being here, and I will see you in the next live stream, or in the comments of a future video. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.